Welcome to the user group webinar for what's new in TBC version 3.80. Trimble just released this latest version, just came out at Dimensions this week in Las Vegas, Nevada at their Dimensions conference, and a lot of exciting stuff in this release. So I'm gonna highlight a few items that will give you at least a taste, kind of identified some of the big ticket items, at least in our opinion, and kind of give you a taste of what's new in version 3.80 so that you can explore it yourself or know better what questions to ask and kind of see the roadmap on where they're going. My name, for those of you that aren't familiar, is Terrell Carlton. I've been the Trimble certified trainer here at CSDS for the last year and almost a half. Been at CSDS for almost 2 years, be 2 years at the beginning of the year, and have met a lot of you, have trained a good percentage of you looking at the list, and have had other folks on webinars and things like that. So always good to be able to try to share some more with regards to TBC. And if you have any questions for me personally, please feel free to send me an email, terrell@csdsinc.com, or you can call the office and ask for me. Email is typically a little easier to get a hold of me because if I'm out doing a training, or for example, this week I was at this conference for 3 days, but I do check my email while I'm doing that, so I'll show you the support address. Most of you are familiar with our support@csdsinc.com address, which is an easier way to get tech support in general because that distribution list actually goes to 3 of us. So we actually have more of a chance to make sure we reply and get to a resolution for the case that you open. So please don't hesitate to send us an email at support if you do have general tech support questions with TBC or Access or any of the mapping software as well. Okay. This recording, as well as other videos, will go up on YouTube. So please check us out at youtube.com/CSDS Inc. And if you'd like, you can subscribe to that channel, and every time we post a video, it'll let you know. So that's the easiest way to make sure you're up to date on the content. We are, as we finish up this year, and especially as we move into 2017, one of our big pushes for the new year is to get some regular updates to our content up there. So we'll be posting videos on Access, on TBC, Trimble Business Center, on Trimble RealWorks. We're gonna branch out a little bit into that. So we've got some exciting stuff planned. So please do subscribe to the channel. That way you'll be notified when we do update that new content. So this recording will go up there. And some of the items, I'll mention them as we get to them. I'll probably break out and I'm going to touch high level on them here, but we'll probably do a more in-depth YouTube video down the road. So some of the commands they've added in this release are a little involved to really demo effectively in this type of a time frame. We only allotted an hour. I'm going to talk for less than an hour, try to open it up for some question and answer, and try not to take up your whole lunch break. If you are joining us on lunch, appreciate it. Appreciate everybody joining. But we'll go through here. So our items that we're going to talk about are going to be as follows. So we're going to talk about importing KML and KMZ files from Google Earth into TBC. This has been a request for a long time for TBC to be able to import data from Google Earth. So if you have vectors and things created in a KML or a KMZ file, you're able now to pull those into TBC. So we'll touch on that. Importing feature code libraries via CSV files. This is another big one. For those of you that have converted over feature code libraries from CAD or from legacy feature code library, the ability now, or the limitation in the past has been creating those libraries very effectively. Most of the time it was necessary to create them from scratch, and they've slowly been adding some of that functionality. If you're familiar with the GIS module, they added a couple of versions ago that enabled you to create a feature code library straight from a GIS schema that's stored in a geodatabase. And now with this, with 3.80, they've added the ability to import feature code libraries via CSV files. So I'll show you how that interface works, and it should be a pretty powerful update. I'm pretty excited about that one. Creating line strings from points, kind of an iterative update, but still an important one, and one that I've talked to a lot of our customers about, just being able to select a group of points or key in a point range and have it spit out a line string between those points. Customized reporting. This one is huge. So this is another one that's been a long time coming. This will be the first iteration of it, and look forward to in the coming versions the customized reporting really getting a big boost as well. So I'll share what they've done so far, and you'll kind of get a feel for the roadmap going forward. Moving survey points, new command that allows you to actually move points over. This has been requested for a long time as well, especially when it comes to generating automated line work from feature codes. If you get into a really tight top of curb and gutter line situation, maybe you're going super quick and the receiver or prism isn't completely plumb, and those lines maybe cross a little bit. This command now gives you the ability to move those survey points over to line up that line work correctly. So Trimble had a lot of trepidation. They delayed on that until they could make sure that they saved the original coordinates effectively, because one of the big pushes, or one of the big themes inside of TBC, is accurately reflecting the survey data and not allowing users to just at random move survey points. That kind of defeats the purpose. So they've now introduced that. So I'll show you how that one works. Pretty simple. Creating layers, that one will be a super quick little demo that just gives you the ability, whenever you're creating an element, whether it's a point, a surface, a line string, a corridor, contours, whatever object you're creating inside of TBC, you're now able to simply hit the space bar, and it takes you into the layer manager to create a new layer. So it makes the creating of layers a little bit more streamlined and much more effective. So improved RXL importing to roads. I'm going to mention that one. I'm not really going to demo it too much in this video. Maybe down the road we'll do a little bit more of a deep dive on that one. The create Kogo command. So they've called this create Kogo command. It's basically the ability to key in lots, boundaries, and compute lot closure reports. So, or boundary closure reports. So it's you can now do that in TBC. It has a kind of a specialized interface. It deviates from a lot of how TBC has been laid out in the past, but once you get used to it, it is pretty powerful. So this will be one of those items that I touch on here. I'll mention it to you, show you a little bit of it, but it'll be down the road. We'll do more of a YouTube video that we can really break into that command. And then again, super high level, just going to mention the new point cloud functionality. They've introduced a scanning module with this release, and with that comes a bunch of functionality regarding 3D scanning and point clouds inside of TBC. If you've noticed over the last couple of years, they're moving more and more to these module theme, I guess you could say, the way they've allowed the software to kind of grow is put in these new features, but since the added value of those features would drive the cost of the software up, and not everybody's going to use all those features, they want to allow folks to just buy the pieces of TBC that you're going to get the most value out of. So the scanning module, I'll talk about what's involved with that one. Okay, a lot of the scanning capability has gone into TBC over the last year and a half to kind of prepare the software to run with the new Trimble SX10 scanning total station. So if you haven't seen this instrument, this is the latest total station from Trimble, and it's basically a 1-second total station combined with a 3D laser scanner that can shoot 26,000 points per second. So a huge upgrade over the pseudo scanning capability of the S series total stations. The S7 can give you an accurate surface scan, but it's pretty limited on the functionality and it's very limited on the speed. If you've ever used that, you know it's not something that you can just blast out real quick. It does take some time. The SX10 is a huge upgrade in that regard. So if you've been watching the development of TBC with any closeness, then you'll have seen the point cloud functionality being increased, and this is kind of been the end game right here. So if you haven't seen the SX10, do check it out. Contact your local rep and have them show it to you. It's a pretty powerful instrument. Works right inside the same workflows inside of Access, so you don't have to learn a new piece of software to be able to use it. It works right inside of Access and then right inside of TBC as well. The highlight for me is that the point clouds that you shoot with it are referenced to any station setup or traversing that you've done with the total station. So everything comes into TBC already registered. You don't have to buy RealWorks to register your clouds. It's all based on your survey workflow already. So it's a pretty powerful instrument, and looking forward to our users and just some of the use cases that come up with it, because it's very a huge upgrade. So excited about that. All right, so enough of the slides. Let's get into TBC version 3.80 and get through as many of these items as we can. Like I say, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this, but I do want to show as much of it as I can. All right, so let's pop this open. All right. Looks like the screen's back there. Okay. So in TBC version 3.80, very similar interface, no major updates to the interface. There's a new item in the news feed that Trimble Business Center 3.80 is available. Other than that, very similar, and it's just adding in the functionality to the similar look and feel that you are used to. So first things first, I want to show you the ability to import a KML file. So I have a KML file that I have created here. Pop this open. And I'm just going to grab this KML file created here, and I'm just going to drag it in to my plan view inside of TBC, and drops right in, and now I have the elements from the KML file that are now imported. So this data right here that I'm using is created in an export from this other project. So I took my RTK data here, exported it as a KML, and then imported it into a fresh TBC project. So just a test, you can experiment with different data types, but anything that you're saving as a KML. So if in Google Earth, let's say a good use case is if you, for example, in Google Earth design a static network. Let's use this as an example. And in Google Earth, you basically line out your points, how you want your framework to be designed, and you can put in different lines for the different sessions and plot that out and take it out to the field, shoot in your static network. Then you can take your KML file that you've created in Google Earth with those lines and points that you've created inside of Google Earth itself, export those out or save that project, the KML file, and then import it into TBC, and you can compare where your network design was in comparison to where the actual points in reality were. Because looking at Google Earth, you can get a pretty decent idea, but if the imagery hasn't been updated or something like that, a place where you've planned to put a point may have a new water fountain or a new traffic light, or there was a median and now it's a turn lane. Something may have changed, so you may have had to move that point a little bit so you can get a sense of how things were affected. So that's just one example, but the importing of KML and KMZ has been requested for a while, so a lot of folks should be excited about that one. One note on that is KMLs are their native, the best, most effective format for those is a global coordinate format. So if you, the KML that you create inside of Google Earth will automatically be stored in that, so you won't have any issues. One thing I did notice was if I mixed and matched coordinate systems between TBC projects when I was exporting and importing, I could get my data flipped. It was rare, but I did notice that. So if it does come in and it looks like it's flip-flopped, then that's going to be linked to the coordinate system. So that's where you'll go to troubleshoot on that one. Okay. All right. So that's importing KML or KMZ. So next I want to talk about the importing of feature libraries via CSV. So this will be, I think, a big help as folks are creating their FXL files, as they're using feature coding in the field and processing it through either TBC or Civil 3D. We do have customers that a lot of folks use TBC as the middleware, the middleman in the process, but the functionality does exist inside of Civil 3D to do all that same processing in there. So getting the feature code library from CAD to TBC or through into the feature definition manager has historically been a little bit of a challenge. So with the CSV file, it should be a big help. So let me show you the interface here, just give you a taste of how it works. So on the file menu, I'll go ahead and create a new file. So I've got a new feature code library created here. And if I go back to file, you'll notice two new items on the list. I've got an import custom CSV file and I've got an export custom CSV file. So you can take it out or into the FDM, the feature definition manager, via CSV. It's not just an import, you can actually export it as well. So depending on how you're trying to share that data, exporting a CSV may be helpful as well. So if I go to import, I have a CSV file with a full-blown feature library exported into it. So let me grab my data here. So I've got this webinar demo.csv, and I'll take that and I'll say open. And so that basically gives you the layout of the original file. Let me expand this a little bit. And it breaks down the different pieces. So you'll notice up here across the top that I've got the original file tab, and then I've got points, lines, polygons, blocks, line control codes, and block control codes in separate tabs there. And you notice as I'm clicking through that these are blank. Now, remember this function is reading a raw CSV file. So it only knows so much about the data. I do anticipate that this is a first iteration. They will add items down the road, so it may be able to do more of an automatic identification in the future. But for now, you need to identify and tell the program what is what, basically. So for example, if I say, okay, this barrier post, code BP, it's in the structures category. The feature layer is this row structures, label style and color, and then attributes. Don't have any. But if I highlight those elements, down here at the bottom, now I have add to points, add to lines, add to polygons, blocks, line control codes, and add to block control codes. So I basically identify the items and I add them to whatever category, I guess you could say, that they pertain to. So for example, I'll just take this barrier post and I'll say down here at the bottom, add to points. Now if I go over to the points tab, now I've got those items copied over, and I need to identify each one of these columns. So again, it's just reading a raw CSV. We need to map that CSV into the FDM. So I can right click on the column header and say, okay, this is the feature name. This right here is the feature code. This will be the category. And this will be the feature layer. I believe this was label style, label color, and then attribute name. Okay. The nice thing about this is that if your file is consistent, once you map the column headers here, then you're done. As you add more items, you don't have to do that for each one, provided that the layout is the same. Okay, so that's adding it into the points. Let's add a couple more here. So let's see, a broadleaf tree. I'm going to grab all these attributes as well so that those come over. A column and a manhole. Okay, now I'll say add to points again. And now those all add over. Again, my column headers have already been set. I do have some extra layers over here, so I can add in I can sort by any of these columns, just like in most of the tables inside of spreadsheets in TBC. You can create those, so then I can say, okay, that's an attribute, that's an attribute. Go back through here, identify what's an attribute. Again, I just define the columns once. Attribute name. This, I believe, was included in surface, actually, so this is attribute name. All right. So I take those points. Now I've added them from my original file. You can see them highlighted in blue there. That means I've identified them. I've used them from this list into one of these categories. So that makes it really nice if you want to go through, just identify your points, copy those out to your points tab, and then go back through and find your lines and polygons or blocks or your line and block control codes. Then it identifies what you've already done, so you're not worried about overlapping codes like that. So a pretty helpful feature there. So now if I have these points, now I can go to the points tab and I can say, okay, I've identified everything. I'm satisfied with how it's laid out. Now I'll say add to FXL. And let's see, attribute type has not been specified for the attribute name specified in a record. Attribute type. Oh, okay. So I missed a column here. So each one of these items has, so this attribute name, for example, I take this broadleaf tree line as my example. You can see the attribute name here, but then the attribute type, which I was going quick, so I just called it, a name again. So let's go attribute type, attribute name. So then that type attribute is a list. So I'll say it's a type, and then attribute name, just change these to type. Oh, one of each. Attribute name, attribute type. Let's try it again. Okay, 4 features successfully imported. I'll close this just to check our work, and I can open up the different categories which were created by that category column, and I can see that under utility, for example, this COM-MH, I've got the code created, the name, and I've got the list attribute created as well. So now all I have to do is I can populate that list command from that list. Okay, let's go to broadleaf tree and trunk spread, and then I can just edit and fill in that list. So the whole framework is created just by that import, and saves a lot of time having to go line by line to create all those items. Okay, so that's the import and export custom CSV file inside of the feature definition manager. Where is that file in Civil 3D? Good question. Where is that file? I'm assuming the CSV file inside of Civil 3D. Civil 3D is a little bit outside of my expertise. Let me look into that, Mark, and I'll get you an answer on that. Export CSV. Okay. Just a reminder: do ask any questions you have in the questions box in the control panel, and I'll try to answer them as I go. Otherwise, like in this case, if it requires some research, if you've been on a webinar with me before, I do make a note and look into those and let you know what the answer is. So do ask. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to mention, or the other item that I wanted to mention, was the block control codes. So inside of the FDM now, you can create a block control code, and that will associate with actual blocks imported from CAD, and you can position those blocks based on 2 or 3 points that you shoot in the field. So you basically define a block feature definition, and you go out and, let's, for example, say it's a gas pump, and you want just a set block for the raised pad that the gas pump sits on, typically kind of a bull-nosed shape, and you have a CAD block that represents that. And so you can define that block, pull it in, and then say, okay, I want to identify and I want to shoot in that block with 2 points, one on each diagonal corner. And so you can define that, say, okay, the first shot's going to be here, second shot's going to be here. That way it knows which way to rotate. It'll also scale that based on those points, and do the full transformation based on those 2 points you shoot. So pretty powerful stuff for positioning full-blown blocks inside of your work. As per the rest of the feature definition manager, there is some setup time on the front end, but if you can set aside that time and get everything set up, then the time and effort savings going forward is pretty huge between simplifying the field data collection and very much simplifying the processing in the office. The feature coding is a great asset to use with your field work. Okay, keep going. I'm going to go pretty quick through these next items. So creating a line string from points. So let me zoom in on some points here. Inside of the CAD tab, I've got this connect points command underneath the Kogo group. If you hover over it, it says line string from points. I'll open that up and I can name the line, call it demo 1, let's say. I'll pair up the other item that I wanted to mention, which is using the spacebar to add a new layer. So for example, they're trying to make the forms inside of TBC as quick as possible to fill out. That way you're back to processing your data. So for example, I give it a name, I'll hit the tab key, go down, which drops me down to my layer field. And all I have to do is hit spacebar if I need to define a new layer. So I could call this layer lines, let's say. Let's save that. Okay, now it's on the lines layer, and I can continue on with my line creation. So makes creating a layer very simple rather than having to make sure you click the drop down, go into new layer, define it, and then save it. I can just tab down, hit spacebar, pops into automatically a new row inside of the layer manager. I can enter it in, change the color, whatever the desired outcome is, and then save that right inside of any of the commands. So anywhere you see layer, if you highlight that field and hit spacebar, it'll automatically pop up the layer manager. So that's a new functionality that if you're dealing with layers inside of TBC can be very helpful. Okay, so back to creating line string from points. Now I can select my data, and I can choose if I want it defined by the coordinates or the point IDs. There's some advantages to both. Check out the help file on that if you want to kind of dig into more of a definition of what's what and the advantages there. Then I can come down to selection, and I can do this a couple ways. So if I go by selection, I can just draw a box around my points. Selected 9, hit apply, and I get a line string right through those points. Okay, if I let me expand or close my points tab there. Okay, and now if I bring up the properties, that's a full-blown line string, has their elevated points, and you can see down here the geometry category here in the bottom of the properties pane shows me the line length, the min, the max elevation, as well as giving me all of my edit capabilities for the layer, the color, the line weight, style, etc. It's all saved inside of the properties pane there. Okay. Same thing or similar idea I can, let me undo that real quick. If I go by point IDs, gives you a little list, kind of a shortcut list here to show you what's what. But I could just say, okay, I want 106 through 114 and hit enter or apply, and creates the same line. Okay, so if you know a point range, then you can just key it in and create that line string. So it's a pretty big bonus or a pretty big advantage over the creating line string command as it was. If you've used that command, it can be a little bit confusing until you get used to it. Once you get used to it, it is pretty effective, but there is definitely a learning curve with it, at least for me. So being able to just create a line via a selection of point IDs or by just selecting that data is a pretty big bonus. Okay. Okay. So then let's talk moving survey points. So if I take one of these points on my line as an example, and I go back to the survey tab up here at the top, and I'll go to the Kogo group over here, and I'll select Move Survey Point. This allows me to select my point and it gives me automatically the ability to just move it. There's no, I could key in the coordinate if I want. I could use all of my CAD functions to select where I wanted to move it, but most of the time it's going to be wanting to align two lines properly. If it's a curb line crossing a gutter line, something like that, then I can just say, okay, move. It'll give me a look at how much I've selected and the elevation. If I want to modify either of those, I can. I click OK, and now it'll move that point, and any line work that's associated with it will snap to it as well. They do highlight it in the plan view and in the Project Explorer. That point ID now has moved embedded in it, and that is not a point ID that you can, yeah, that way you know if it's been moved. Again, the big push inside of TBC is for you to know what is what and what data is available or what's been modified. Get back to the questions here. Are there any basic feature coding libraries available? With the FDM, Trimble includes one. They call it Global Features, and they include that with every install. You can take that, use it as it is, modify it. They don't care. There's no copyright on it. As far as something more simple than that, we have a training library that I have no problem sending. It's pretty limited. Some line codes, some trees, manholes, the lamppost code. It's pretty stripped down, but I can send you that as an idea if you want. But the global points inside of the FDM, or global features, I think it's called. That is just Trimble's example file, so you can take that and use it at your leisure. Okay. Let me know if that's something you want to have. Either I can email you either the global file if you don't have it, the global features file, or my training file. Again, neither is intellectual property or anything like that, so I don't have any beef sending either of those to anybody. Let me know offline and I can shoot those over. Okay, so moving survey points. I mentioned the new scanning functionality, the scanning module. All of those tools are going to be located on the Point Clouds tab, and again, that is a separate module. If you do want to test it out and see if that is something that you do want to move forward with, we do have 30-day demo codes that include all the scanning module functions. So let me know. Send me an email or send an email to support letting us know that you want a 30-day demo code that includes the scanning module, and we can shoot that over to you and you can test it out. So look for, again, if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, we will have some videos coming out with some point cloud processing, some SX10 data. That'll be something that we definitely do by the end of the year. So that'll be coming out. So subscribe to the channel. We'll get you updated and you can kind of see more of these commands used. But has the ability to do some cloud-to-cloud scan registration. So if you just shoot scan clouds that were not referenced to survey points, then you do have the ability to register it right in TBC. You can geo-reference those scans. You can create regions and then merge regions. They have this classify tool that allows you, in one click, it goes through and identifies the ground surface, any trees, any signs or posts, and any buildings, and classifies those as different scan regions automatically. And then you can merge those different regions together if you want to simplify the list. It's pretty powerful stuff, and looking forward to seeing that used out in the field. So classify the regions. You can then sample them down. A lot of these are borrowed from RealWorks. If you're familiar with Trimble RealWorks, being able to classify and sample, especially, that will be familiar. They've added some functionality to the limit box. You can now create different limit boxes and save them, so you can jump back and forth between different limit boxes that you've isolated data with, and as well as a bunch of different controls for viewing that data. So like I say, super high level, but look for some videos in the future on the TBC scanning module, because that will be something that we definitely do. Okay, moving on to the custom reporting. So the custom reporting module, or it's not a module, I should say, it's a command, is something that's been long requested. And this first edition, if you will, I mean, to be perfectly candid, it does not have all the functionality that you're probably looking for right up front, but it's a huge step forward, and looking forward to the future iterations being able to really flesh out that command. So if you do get into 380, please do check out the custom reporting, customize some reports, let us know if it works well, if there are things that it still needs. That feedback we can funnel directly back to the TBC beta group and really flesh that that command out into what you need. So real high level, I'll show you. This will be another video that we create more in depth, but now on the reports drop down that you find on a lot of the tabs inside of TBC, you can create this custom report or edit a custom report. If I create one, let's call it demo, demo report. And I can take, they have these source data tables listed here, so I can identify it as either a baseline processing, network adjustment, a point list, as staked, or alignment geometry reports. Those are kind of the broad categories with which you can identify the report. And if I go to, let's say, point list, let me grab one of the templates. They have report templates saved to give you a starting point. In my opinion, it's always easier to modify something that exists rather than try to create it from scratch. I can say open, and then down here in the lower part of this, I can say edit layout, and this will open up Microsoft Office or Microsoft Word and allow you to create a custom report that then feeds off of the TBC data. So at first glance, it may look pretty basic, but check out on the right-hand side over here. If I go into this points group, now I can add any of these parameters into this report. I can create different tables, obviously in Word, and then I can populate them with this different with these different items. So, for example, all of these items, if I click on this elevation item, is linked to the Trimble project database and is looking for that category inside of the TBC project. So whenever I run this report, for example, this report will create a custom point list for as many reports or as many points in my project as there are, and it's going to populate this elevation field with whatever data sits in the elevation field in my TBC projects database. So it's extremely dynamic and will create a point record in this case for each of those points that you create. So all of these tabs over here, for example, if I wanted to, let's change this to like a media file, let's say. So media file. And now for this item, the meridian convergence angle item, I'm just going to delete that. And down here on the points list, I have media file listed here. So this will actually link the JPEG that came from either the TSC3 or the instrument into this field. So I can just drag and drop that, and then I can resize it. The fact that everything's dynamic is very helpful. And then there are some properties that I can edit. Again, this will be the deep dive, but if you create a table, then you can, for each new record, you can have it add in a new line and really automate the creation. So again, a first stab, but being able to add in that media file now, and you have all your feature codes and then attributes you can add in, the local and global coordinates. And this is just for the point list. Remember, there's the baseline processing, the network adjustment, the as staked. I anticipate those will be the biggest three that get the most use. And this is a jumping off point. So when I hit OK, I can save this, and let's call it this one. I'm going to overwrite that. Okay, and now I'll say OK. Let's call it webinar demo. So now in my reports group, I've only done some early tests with this, so let's give this a shot. Now on my reports menu, if I go to more reports, I'll have webinar demo here on the list. So that template that I just created and modified is now, I can run that inside of any TBC project on the fly. Okay, so let's test this out here. Hit OK. Again, I'm storing data on Dropbox, so there could be some weirdness, but yeah, so I've got a media file. You can see the media file I edited there. Doesn't look like it's bringing them in. So first edition, we got halfway there. Or first try, we got halfway there, and that'll be again a deeper dive video that we do, and looking forward to seeing this command expanded in future releases. So huge bonus, huge starting point, and really excited about that one. Okay, getting close to the end here. Exporting the RXL roads from Access into, or from TBC into Access. They have these two new items, the Trimble Access Road RXL templates and the Trimble Access Road strings. So those two items do a huge bonus, or give a huge benefit for exporting roads and corridors into Trimble Access. So that's been one of the misses, or one of the holes in that workflow between using roads and creating corridors in TBC, is that having a clean export. So the export is a lot better, and that'll be a deeper dive video that we do as well. So you can see, as I mentioned each one of these videos, we have a bunch of content planned for our YouTube video, or our YouTube channel. So do check those out, and probably some future webinars, some premium webinars down the road as well. But to start with, we'll be doing some command videos to get us started. So lastly, again, another super high level, but wanted to mention, inside of either the survey or the CAD tab, they've now added this create Kogo command, which gives you the ability to identify boundaries and lots and compute lot closures. So I'll give this one a name just so I can show you the rest of this command. Let's call this webinar demo. And similar idea with this, with the layer command. I just hit spacebar. I call this boundary layer. Say okay, okay. I can have it do automatic point numbering. So as I key in bearings and distances, or azimuths, or whatever data format I'm using to key in my boundaries or my lots, I can have it automatically create numbering, and I can have those points put on a different layer as well if I want to. So I can choose whether or not I have 3D positions and how I want those horizontal how those horizontal distances are recorded. So what am I importing? So I can have a grid, or I can have a ground scale factor associated as well. And then how am I going to define my curve distances, either by arc, chord, or delta angle on that. Numeric keypad mode just dictates how you're going to enter the data. So for example, I hit create, and now if I go over to the Kogo tab, this is where I basically use a text-based format to input those data. So the idea behind this is to get you away from the mouse and allow you to just use the keyboard, because once you get used to the commands, and there's not a super huge list, so it's a fairly simple command to get to know. Once you know the commands, it's a lot easier to just keep your fingers on the keyboard and key in that data. So for example, if I show you the drop downs over here, so I can start my boundary or my lot with either a coordinate or a point. If I just hit coordinate, again, the idea is to get you onto the keyboard so that you can just look at your plat or the data that you have written down, and I can just key that in. Or it also gives me the ability to dynamically pick on the map. So I can click here. If I have an optional point ID, I could enter it. If I had a feature code, I could. And I'll just hit enter. So that gives me my first point. You can see in my Kogo tab up here, I get my starting coordinate. And now I can say, okay, I want to add a line. And expanding those, I can add a line by any of these commands. So by azimuth, by a coordinate to the endpoint, by a deflection angle, by an interior angle, a left 90, by points, a right 90, and then I could just extend a tangential line from lines I already have. So I can add a line, and again, each one that you choose is going to have this different command here. So I can either just type through with the keypad, or I can click inside of my my plan view as well. So if I define the azimuth there and the length, again, optional point ID or feature code, I'll just say enter. Okay, line by azimuth again, and I can either click around or just use the keypad to define those. So you can see up here in the line commands that it's pretty simple. So each of those line by azimuth is just an LB code, and then the azimuth there and the distance. So for example, if I just hit enter, I could say LB. I could say let's go 160 space 50 space 50, and then it's going to automatically fill that in for me. The length, I could do, let's do 250, hit enter, and that keys that in for me. I could always come back and say, oop, fat fingered that one, it's actually 260. Oop. Edit down here, 260, and now I can correct that. So it's nice. It's a mix of kind of the 2D and 3D. If I select any of these items from this list, or just click inside that row, it highlights what element I'm looking at in my plan view. So pretty powerful. And then once you have a closure, you can then compute the misclosure and the geometry with that tool. So that'll be a big one. That'll be a video in and of itself. You can see there's a little bit of a learning curve to it, so we'll try to break that one out. But if you do have the ability or the time to grab a plat map and key in those items, you'll pretty quickly get a feel for how it goes and be able to enter data very, very quickly. So I spent more time on new commands than I wanted to. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of commands, a lot of enhancements that they've added to 3.80. So we've scratched the surface. We did about 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-ish of them. Do check out from the start page, once you download the software, check out the release notes. Those will have a complete breakdown of all of those new commands, and you'll be able to scroll through that that PDF and see everything they added under new features. So get a full breakdown of the scanning module and some of these other commands. Again, we will be doing more content based on these features, and hope someone will add line by bearing. Yeah, the Jean-Marie, the line by bearing, you can actually update that now. You can actually do line by bearing instead of azimuth, because that's governed by the project settings. So inside of my project settings, if I change my units, my azimuth units, I can say I don't want to display a north azimuth, I want to display a bearing, and then you can actually key it in by bearing. I believe in that command, even if you have it set as azimuth, I believe you can key in a bearing inside of, for example, inside of this azimuth box. I think you can key in, let's do this, let's try it. Let's say north 30, 45, east. And it should take it. And yeah, you can see I've completely jacked around my drawing there. So just because it says azimuth, you can still enter in a bearing, and it'll take it. So, but the display units is the big one. If you want to see most of the dialog boxes that have azimuth in them, you can change those to deal in bearing, and that'll update. So if I go back here, if I go into here, now you can see that instead of azimuth, it's bearing. So okay, and for example, even if up here in the text I've got an azimuth entered, but down here if I select that line down here, it's actually got the bearing associated. So pretty powerful stuff with regards to that. So any other questions? We have a couple minutes here. I was trying not to run to the full hour, but any other questions, please type them in, and I'll try to answer those real quick. If you are looking to upgrade to 380, if your software license is current as of the 1st of November, then you're good. If it's not, if your warranty or your software maintenance has expired, do contact us. We can help you get that extended, or if you want to at least test out the new tools, we can get you a 30-day demo code as well. So just send us an email at support@csdsinc.com, and we can send you over a 30-day demo so you can experiment with the new features and get a feel for if it's actually valuable to your workflow and your crews. And then we can discuss getting your software back out within the maintenance after that. So feel free, as always, to give us feedback on TBC. It's a very, very, very dynamic development team. The group at Trimble is extremely open to input. They have a beta group with end users and dealers from all over the world that give enhancement requests and report bugs. So both myself and Tom Cardenas in our office have been a part of this beta group for the last year and a half, and enhancement requests really do make the list, and they really do get incorporated into future versions. They do a release about every 6 months. So if you do have an enhancement request, it's not like, well, I submitted an enhancement request, maybe I'll see it in 5 years. It's a very, very dynamic program. So please let us know. And if it's the type of thing where it's like, well, I really don't see the value in upgrading my software because TBC still doesn't have X. Let us know what that X is, and we can see if we can get that added and really create the tool that gives you the most value. Appreciate your time. Thanks very much. Have a great rest of your afternoon and a great end of the week, a good weekend, and we'll see you at the next CSDS training event. Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.